All right, Dave,
Hello.
what is up, dude?
Not
How's it going?
much. Good. How are you?
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I have to ask, is everything looking okay as far as
Yep.
sound? There's not any glitching or skipping or anything
Yeah.
like that?
Seems
Okay.
good. Seems
Okay.
good.
So there was something going on within this last like week and a half, where anybody that was jumping on Instagram Live, the host of the actual like video or the stream, if you will, it was like coming through really glitchy, and
Okay.
so I was like kind of
No,
worried because I
it's
was
all
messing
good.
around, but okay,
It's all
so
good. Thank you
sweet, awesome.
for guiding me through this because I've never done Instagram Live either. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not a problem. Every once in a while, something pops up where it's the application, and we have to try and get through that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is sick. I really
Thanks
appreciate
for
it, and
having me
I love
on,
the
man.
stuff that you have, dude. And this is cool. And your
Yeah.
guys' show that you had, the No Guff, listening to some of those things
Oh,
as far as
yeah.
some of the fun that you and your wife had with
Yeah.
film. I love that too. I was actually talking to Danny about that, and I was like, man,
Oh,
that's like a
thanks,
good
man.
idea. So sick.
Yeah, my wife and I are, I mean, I like to say that like film is our religion. Like it really is for me. I'm like obsessed with it. It's what I pray to. It's what I go to every week or every day to get refreshed and just kind of like escape from the world and all that kind of stuff. And we have found that process of we call it no guff, which is like it eliminates the argument of like what movie should we put on. It's really just like it's my turn and I get to pick, and then next time you get to pick, and it
Yeah.
kind of helps smooth that over for sure.
That's sick. And I love that. I mean, like, that just being kind of one of those things, like my wife and I also being together for, 10 years. There's those times where you're
Yeah.
trying to sit through, like sifting through things, and you're like, God, I don't know where to go with
Oh
this. So,
yeah.
great idea. So kind of spinning off of that, at the foundation of your work, your interest in film, your interest in art, different things. Start off as far as talking, earlier memory of, maybe books or television shows, film, maybe comics, anything like that, to where art was really, initially kind of sticking out to you as far as a specific.
Well, I should say that my parents have been always super like supportive of the arts. My dad is a music director and a musician, and so like music was already always kind of part of my life. Um, so I was already they were already kind of like yeah. Nobody was telling me not to watch movies or not to listen to certain types of music or anything like that. So that was great.
Mhm.
But yeah, movies. I think like for me, the first movie that like blew my mind was Toy Story, and I was 4 or 5 when that came out.
Okay.
And there's something, and that was the first CG movie ever, and so like that, I don't know, there was something about that movie that like opened my eyes to like, and I watched that, I ran that tape to the ground, like that VHS was like not usable after I probably watched it like every day for like a year when I was a kid, and my parents were like, "Is he okay?" Like, but and honestly, maybe I wasn't, but like I think that it's just there was just something I don't know. It was like it's an escape, but it's also like part of my brain was like already kind of like memorizing parts of the movie and like analyzing parts of the movie or trying to understand, and like I don't even know if I consciously knew this, but I was like trying to understand the filmmaking behind it and stuff like that. Like when that movie came out, it's like nobody had ever really seen that kind of style before, so it was kind of like entrancing to me. Of course, that's now like most animated features are CG now, which is funny, but like yeah, that movie blew my mind. And I think also that was the same year I went and saw the first movie I ever saw in theaters, which was Lion King, which might have been the year before actually, but yeah, Lion King also. But like, yeah, all those Disney movies, all that hand drawn stuff, like really blew my mind. It really wasn't until a little later that I started like noticing stop motion or kind of like understanding what that was. But or at least yeah, like I think I might have seen some stuff. Like I remember there was like my grandma had a tape of Pee Wee's Playhouse, and there was a bunch of claymation in that,
Oh yeah.
just from here and there. Like the opening is CG or is stop motion claymation.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, art like that was always kind of like a big thing in our house. I also was like really into. I wasn't really like a comic book reader, but for some reason I always wanted to tell stories and I always wanted to. I wrote comic books, and most of them were parodies of movies. Like the there's a whole like there was like I wrote like 30 comic books as a kid, and I
Oh, sick.
drew them all and wrote them. The first few are really rough. I still have them, but like they're really rough to try to get through. But
Okay.
they're like there's like a run of three of them that is like uh, Honey I Shrunk the Kids, and each one is like a beat for beat
Oh, okay.
parody of Honey I Shrunk the Kids, but like with me and my brother and sister as like the main characters. Um, so I was always into that, and yeah, I don't know. And then like eventually I got into um, my parents let me use the old DV camera, the old like with the little tapes, and started messing around with that. And I was probably like, well, like it was about like the time when YouTube was starting to be a thing, and so like I was starting to get inspired by stuff I was seeing on the internet and making little videos with friends, and a lot of that stuff is cringy now, but but I mean, it's fun. I mean, and like, yeah, some of them were just like exact copies of stuff we saw on the internet, but like it was, I mean, it's good to kind of, as a kid, you're allowed to do that kind of thing and learn how to play around with a camera and just have fun. And yeah.
And
Um,
it's so funny, being able to look back at that type of stuff too, and
oh yeah.
and really, like digging into as far as like storytelling, kind of like you mentioned, and even though it might kind of seem dim-witty or silly, you're looking and you're like, man, this like kind of has, a little bit of a build throughout, and there's a character development, it's like, man,
Yeah.
we for as dumb as maybe we think of it as it is, some of the stuff, there's other things where it's like, wow, maybe I was actually onto something early on.
Yeah, and you need that. You need to experiment with that, especially as a kid. Like you need to play around. Like I think it. I also was like as a kid with the DV camera. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying. I was inspired by like Lego stop motions on YouTube that I
Okay.
saw. Like specifically, there was a Monty Python Lego stop motion that I saw on the internet, and it was like there was a song in one of the Monty Python movies that like they did a shot for shot remake of it, but in Legos and
Oh, okay.
stop motion. And I've watched it like 100 times and then tried to do it, but like I didn't know what I was doing, so I was like instead of like taking a picture, which is what you need to do for stop motion, I was like recording for a second and then trying to stop it. So it's very like
Okay.
very clunky, very like you know.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that kids now can do stop motion so easily from their iPad. Like there's stop motion software that you can like learn. Like I used to teach at a camp for kids how to use like how to do stop motions on an iPad, and like any kid can do it and like learn how to do it, and are like could be like they're way more advanced. Like if they get to my age, they'll be way more advanced than me because they've had so much like practice with it. It's so
Oh
much
man.
easier to do it now than it ever was when I was a kid or even earlier. Because before me, it was just film. Before like the '90s, it was like people were just using an old film camera to try to do this
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I remember earlier, like maybe even in middle school, when there was a couple of buddies who had made a stop motion, a project of some sort. It was something for a class. I don't even know if it was like a theater or something like that, but it
yeah,
was like a short film, and it was just like mind blowing to me, just as far as seeing like the only time I saw that was maybe older dinosaur or monster movies or like a Primus video. I'm like, I
yeah.
don't even know how
Tool.
these kids, yeah, like Tool, like I don't
Yeah,
even know how they like figured this out. So that was initially like your first kind of dig into stop motion was
yeah,
using
yeah.
that camera. Where did it develop from there?
Um, it kind of came and went because I like I would kind of dink around with that, and then like YouTube, I think made it, or like I started a YouTube account, and I kind of stopped doing the stop motion stuff. I was doing more like very cringy comedy with a couple friends, and like did I was trying to do some like special effects stuff. Like I would do like I had like lightsaber videos, and I would like use After Effects or use Photoshop to be doing like putting lightsabers on like a pole that I had, like so doing that kind of stuff. And I kind of moved away from stop motion then as a kid. And then it wasn't till, and I went to film school. So I came to Chicago and went to Columbia College. And my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was taking a stop motion course, and she loved it. And I was like, yeah, I love stop motion too. Like I dabbled in it. And so I took a class at my school and just kind of like furthered it from there, fell in love with it really. Because like I hadn't really, it wasn't until then that I did it properly, or it was actually like committed to try to like, because now there's software that like makes it so easy. And so like, or it makes it so, and I have it up here too, I can show you how it works, but like back in the day, like in like King Kong and all the Ray Harryhausen movies and the Rankin Bass like Christmas specials, like all of those, they're just using a film camera, and they're using like they can't see what they're doing really. They're just kind of like, they're not guessing, but they are like, so like they'll use here I can show you what they would do. Like they would use like a thing called a surface gauge, which is like a little, it's like, see my little guy down here. They would like mark a spot here, or like here, and they'd be like, okay, that's where his head is on the frame we just took. And then they would move it a little bit, and then they'd move it here, and they'd be like, okay, I've moved it like a 1/4 inch. That means it's probably good. And then they'd put another surface gauge here and try to make sure that they're like moving it the right amount. Now with like what I can do and this is, but with the like digital cameras, once digital cameras become a thing, it's like stop motion is so much easier than it used to be. And what you can do is you can have like you can have the image, you can just toggle through the frames that you're taking as you take them. So you can watch it as you're creating it, and you can just kind of make sure that your movement is looking right, like as you do it, as opposed to like just doing it blind. Like they would just expose a frame of film and hope it works out right, and hope it works out. And then they go and get the film developed and be like, looks good. It's wobbly, but it, you know, and that's what's so impressive, I think, about stuff like King Kong or anything, you know, in the film era, because like it's so, they were doing it blind, really. I mean, the surface gauge is like their only way of kind of knowing where they were on the last frame and that kind of thing. Like, and when you think about it, like with like Ray Harryhausen would do stuff with like Hydra with like 9 heads, like flying around, monsters with like all kinds of limbs, and it's like I don't even know how you would begin to try to like keep track of that stuff.
Dang.
So yeah, so like in college I was doing that stuff with a DSLR, like a digital camera, and it's so much easier, and so it's like it's very intuitive. And that's the same thing with an iPad. A kid can do it in the exact same way. And so like that's why I kind of fell in love with it, because I found it to be fairly intuitive. But it's also like stop motion is so cool because it's like it's unlike other animation styles, in the sense that like with a hand-drawn animation you can draw the first frame and you can draw the last frame, and then you can kind of fill in the middle. And then with CGI you can do keyframes, and then you fill in the middle, and then you can kind of nuance it and change it as you keep working on it. You can kind of, the first pass that you do on the animation, you can change it 100 times. With stop motion, like you start at the beginning and it's like you do it in one take. It's like a performance. It's almost like it's like acting in a way, because you have to do it in one go. And you start at the beginning and you end at the end, and that's it. If you want to do it again, you have to start over.
Jeez.
So it's like, so there's a risk involved, but it's also so satisfying to watch the inanimate object that you were playing with, like playing with your toys, and watch it move on its own. Like that's, you can't, you just fall in love with that.
Now, I mean, do you still have things from your childhood that you know, every once in a while somebody brings up, you know, doing something like, you know, the wrestling bit, or you know, like the music video that we'll dig into a little bit later, but something from your childhood, like a figure or something where you're like, I want to implement this here, but it might not be professional.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I have all my old comic books I could show you, but
Okay.
I don't know. Stuff from yeah, like when I was a kid, it was like we were really trying to copy other stuff, really playing around with that.
Okay.
Like the comedy stuff I would do, it was like we just wanted to be Lonely Island, like we were just trying to be
Okay.
Andy Samberg, and then like um, with the like me and Mike Clayman, we would do videos where we did this one where it's like it's a type of stop motion called pixelation where you use your real body.
Uh-huh.
And so like we did this video where we were sitting on the ground and we would like take a picture where we're sitting and then we'd scoot forward a little bit and take another picture where we're sitting and it looks like we're riding in a go-kart, but we're just like sitting on our butt on the pavement. And that was a copy of a video that we'd seen on the internet, and we were just like playing around with it. Of course, like we made it like made us crash and smash into stuff, and but it was like yeah, but it's funny because like I could take what we did and actually cut because I was doing it with the same where I'd hold the record button down and unrecord, and so like it was very like clunky looking. I could probably take that and make it into like a smooth looking animation today if I went and edited it. But yeah.
Was that like your first attempt as far as like stop motion
Yeah, like
or
I did
anything like
a
that?
little bit of Lego stuff. I think, but this me and Mike helped me with that too. But like, yeah, I think that those two things were like the first stop motion. Yeah,
Oh my God. I
but
love that. That's
stop
awesome.
motion, like yeah, definitely like the first movie I ever saw. I think that was like stop motion. I saw James and the Giant Peach, and
Oh, okay.
um, and like Chicken Run. Chicken Run, I remember I saw in theaters, and like that blew my mind. Because and like I don't know, like there's something about stop motion too that I think like when you look at it, you can tell it's a photograph. You can tell it's a real thing, even as a kid, or it looks
Uh,
like a toy, or you can tell it's a physical, real, tangible thing. And there's something like nostalgic or just kind of quirky about it that I think like audiences today are still really into.
yeah.
People call stop motion like a dying art, but I think it's still pretty prominent. Um,
Yeah. I don't know if have you seen Phil Tippett's new movie
yeah,
that just came out,
yeah, Mad God.
The Mad
Have you
God?
seen it yet?
It's
It's
insane.
insane,
Like
and he worked on that for 30 years
I
because he was
was
just
gonna say
working on it
20,
in
so now we're
between.
adding that's crazy.
Yeah, or maybe it was 20. I don't know. But yeah, like he'd worked on it for a long time, and then I think he had like shelved it, and then came back to it with like and now in the digital age because he was shooting it on film,
Hmm.
and now in the digital age he was able to kind of move faster and get it done.
So crazy.
It's
Absolutely
great.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, and something that as far as a creative, I've always been drawn to the idea as far as just a cognitive thought outside of the box. Maybe not even when you're younger, you're not thinking of these types of things, but something coming along, maybe like a Halloween costume or a project at school where you're just supposed to do something very square, and you're like, nah, I want to step out of this realm and make something special. What comes to mind as far as maybe even earlier with like a Halloween decoration that you really wanted to make something and what was available wasn't up to what you were wanting to present.
Um, I don't know. Well, like as a kid, like in school, if I ever had a project that like I could give a speech or make a movie, I always chose to make a movie. Or
Okay.
like I remember I did like a rap video about calculus when I was in like senior year. I did a yeah, like I shot this whole for like a Greek mythology class. I shot a whole uh film with like weird dumb special effects but like yeah like for a friend like we worked on it and it was like yeah we had like little paper cutouts to be like the hydra actually and so like we like
Okay.
my friend would be swinging a sword, we'd have a shot of him swinging a sword and then we'd have a paper cutout and we like leaned into the like cheesiness of it and like just
Uh,
scissors would come and cut off the hydra's head and like so like it was just mixing those like different styles.
oh
Yeah,
man.
I mean, I think we accepted that it wasn't going to turn out the way that we envisioned it, but so we just leaned into it, into the B movie aspect of that. But yeah, that was all like stuff in high school. Yeah, I don't know, Halloween. I'm like one of those guys who like I always want to do a Halloween costume and then I never commit to anything and then I like and then like I don't know, I go as the same thing I was last year or like
Yeah.
I just run out of time. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just not gonna
Yeah.
go. This isn't gonna work out.
I'm saying yeah.
So as far as within your interest through film throughout the years, whether in animation or maybe, kind of divulging a little bit into when you discover horror, what are three scenes that really are just forever ingrained in your brain? Something that maybe was terrifying, shocking, animation, just wondering how it was that they accomplished this. What comes to mind?
Um well, Jurassic Park. I remember being really scared
Ooh.
of Jurassic Park as a kid. Like uh that one, like the raptor scene in the kitchen, that like scared the hell out of me as a kid. And I remember I'd have like a recurring nightmare about dinosaurs. But like I
Oh
watch that
man.
movie all the time. So like I that's the thing about horror, and I'm not really like I'm not like a horror aficionado, but I
Mhm.
do like horror. But like the thing I like about horror is that like it's funny how we are drawn to like torture ourselves with it,
Yeah.
or it's like you want to watch the thing that scares you. It's like I would watch Jurassic Park all the time. And I think
Uh-huh.
it's because it's the thrill to kind of vicariously live through the characters and like be scared.
Hmm.
Um, they I don't know. Yeah. Uh, I also let me think. What else? I like Gremlins. I watched Gremlins, but I was like I watched it like here and there, like at friends' houses because I wasn't allowed to watch it. I don't think. And like my parents wouldn't let me watch it, and
Okay.
I don't know why. Like it's not that. I think maybe it was like when I was younger, but like that movie, I was like it's freaky like and it was also like you'd see movies on the shelf like when I was a kid. Blockbuster was a thing, or not Blockbuster. We didn't have a Blockbuster in my tiny town, but we had like Video
Okay.
Plus. We had Video Plus,
Okay.
and just there's something about going to the video rental and like just looking at the posters or looking at
Yes.
the covers, and even if you don't rent it, like you remember that movie, like Hellraiser, what scared me, just the cover, and like, yeah, and actually Pennywise behind you scared me too,
Yeah.
and so like
Okay.
that kind of stuff, like it sticks with you, and like I loved Blockbuster because like you pick a movie and you're stuck with that movie. It's like
Yeah.
you picked it, you
Yeah.
basically your pick on the cover, and you can, and so like that's what you're gonna watch tonight. Like it's I don't know, it's just very funny like how things have evolved. I do miss it because I miss like going and physically looking around, picking a thing, and then going home and watching it, as opposed to just like, what are we gonna watch tonight? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a different experience for sure.
There was so much commitment involved, or if
Yes.
you were going to buy a CD or a tape, it was like you only had $15 or $20 of an allowance, and
Yeah.
if this thing sucks, you're gonna be either trying to figure this out or figure
You're
out how you can
gonna
trade it or
return it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from these earlier interests in different things, where comes the process of creating your first puppet or a first figure that you're having in an actual animation that you're making? How does that come about? Do you have to buy things online, wiring, kind of a base,
Yeah.
like a foundation to it? How does that come about?
Well, the stuff I learned in school was about like, yeah, like I mean, they taught us kind of crash course of building a puppet. Here, I'll grab one for you real quick.
Sweet.
Give me one sec. But yeah, it's a process to build a puppet if you want to like a stop motion puppet, one that is like posable and that you
Hmm.
can bend. Because like the thing with stop motion is you want to be able to bend it and pose it, and then you want to stay in the spot that you left it.
Yeah,
Because
right.
if it sags or if there's too much weight, it's going to sag or move, and that's specifically what you don't want in stop motion. You want it to stay exactly where you left it. And
Hmm.
so here I have a couple of puppets. Here is the base of kind of like where I would always start with, which is um, a wire kind of skeleton,
Hmm.
and then you're using bits of this is plumber's epoxy, which is just it's like
Oh, okay.
it's like two different. You take two different pieces of like it's kind of like a clay like thing, and you mix them together and smush them together, and then you have like 5 minutes, and then it's going to harden and it's going to be and then you leave it for like an hour, and then it's like rock hard and you can't move it at all anymore. And that's what you want to kind of put these two pieces together. And the purpose is so that you can bend it. You want to be able to bend it and have it do what you want it to do. But then you also want to be able to keep these parts intact. Like you could also put another piece of epoxy here and another piece here, so that like you're only bending the elbow and you're not bending in the middle.
Oh, right.
Unless, of
Okay.
course, like you could keep it this way so that it can be really fluid or really goofy, cartoony in that way. So that's like a choice you can make. But like, yeah, like these are cheap materials. Like you can buy this in the hardware store. There's also like a thing that we used to do is put in this puppet we have them like what's called a tie down, and it's just a little wing nut in here, and then you would like drill a hole in the bottom of the table, and then you can kind of keep that foot exactly where it is, because if I leave it, it's going to fall over. If I don't have it tied down to the table, it's going to fall over.
Oh, weird.
So that's interesting. But now a thing that you can do is I know it looks a little awkward. This is a ball and socket one that my dad and I tried to make. It kind of failed, but like it's just loose. The ball and socket is like what they usually use for like big productions.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what King Kong was made out of, ball and socket. Like most of like the modern stop motion movies you see are ball and socket ones, because the ones that they machine them really tight, and then you can kind of bend them however you want. But right here, it looks a little inappropriate, but it's like in its butt, you'll put this little square tubing, and then you can put another square, a bigger, like a slightly bigger square tube here, and you'll have a rig to be able to make it like jump or move that way. And most of the time, in a movie now, they'll rig them like that way to make them walk. They'll rig them so they don't need to be drilling through the floor to make them stay in place. And then other things, I mean, you can do other things, like you can wrap it in like some kind of foam or something to kind of give it some weight, give it some muscles, or give it whatever, so that it's not just a skinny piece of wire. And then you can put clothes on it, sew some clothes, or source some stuff like Barbie or G.I. Joe clothes, and kind of jerry rig them. And yeah, I'm not sure where we moved several times, so I don't always know where all the puppets are. But yeah, like it's a process. And honestly, I think I've found that like it's something I'm not the best at. Like it's something that I can always learn to get better at. And so sometimes I'll source it out to other people to help me do that part of it. My wife is a little better at it than I am. And so like some of those things, like you got to learn your strengths, but also like be willing to learn. Like, like I feel like it's good to not rest on your laurels, and it's always good to like keep trying to learn, but also like know your strengths, because like I'm not necessarily good at lighting. Like that's not really my forte. So like on a bigger production, I usually want to have somebody that is like a gaffer that can actually do the lighting and make it look nice, so that I can focus on the animation and the big picture stuff or whatever, or whatever I'm hired to do. So like it is kind of like, yeah, a give and take of like trying to figure out what you're good at, but then maybe learn some of those things so that you can do more on your own, or so that you can kind of make projects happen without having to hire somebody or whatever.
Sure. Okay.
So, yeah.
And I mean, so from that process of going to Columbia, you're in school, you're doing, is it like a 4-year program? Was it longer?
Yeah.
Okay.
4 years.
Okay.
I went for just filmmaking. I had like a directing focus when I first started, and then I kind of dropped that because I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. And so I kind of wanted to take a bunch of different courses. I also I should say too, like when I was a kid, I was also filming stuff and then editing it. So I was learning how to edit when I was like in high school. And so I on the same program that I edit today. It's Adobe Premiere. And so like I
really? Okay.
Yeah. So I learned, it was a bootleg copy then, but I should say that live. I was 14, so
yeah, right.
I don't care. Yeah, it's so like that carried over to college. So I took some editing courses, I took some directing courses, and then I took stop motion courses, and then like just got my degree, I think generally in just film and video. And then honestly, like it took several years for me to get a job that was like I got an editing job like 5 years after I graduated. And so it
Mm.
took a while for me to kind of like get into that kind of stuff. But I was still doing stop motion stuff with my wife. Like we've been doing like we did some music videos, we did some projects that like not everything came to fruition. The thing about stop motion is that it's like it can be expensive to build everything, and not even, and then that's not even like bringing into thought like the time it takes to do it. So like we were working jobs and also trying to like get this stuff done, and like it's kind of like a juggling act. So like paying for it yourself, paying for stuff, materials to build props, and then the time it takes to build those props, and then everything that goes into the actual animation. So like stop motion is not like it's not cheap. It's not like sitting at the computer or drawing. Like it is I don't know, it's kind of uh it is not necessarily the most practical thing on the planet.
Yeah.
But I mean but at the same time it's more like actual filmmaking, I guess, because it's like you're using a camera, you're using lights, you have to have props, you have to have sets. And so in that way, it kind of is a combination of things that I love, like hand-drawn animation or just animation in general, and then also like actual filmmaking with like physical camera and lights and everything like that.
So you were mentioning the editing and process. What was this first project as far as you going into editing, and then what was, you know, the first maybe hired project as far as doing something that you were going to be animating, directing?
Um, well, so yeah, like before that, we had been doing some stop motion projects on the side, but then I got hired at a production company that was just like a creative agency doing video editing and like a lot of like documentaries for like kind of like the corporate world, or like some stuff for like social media, and I still do a lot of this. So like I worked there for 2 years and I got a lot of experience doing like um, doing like mini documentaries for like different companies in corporate America and that kind of thing, and then also like some fun comedy and narrative stuff. So like getting a good like mix of that kind of thing, and I honestly I do recommend that, like that kind of thing, for anybody to kind of get some of that under your belt, so that you're in like learning stuff like deadlines, meeting deadlines, and like being able to like juggle multiple projects at once and that kind of thing. And so I left that job after 2 years and then started just freelancing. Um,
Mm.
and I've been freelancing ever since. And so that, and honestly, I learned so much of not only just like editing and kind of getting of the flow of that kind of thing, but I also learned like the business side of it a little bit, of like and it's hard because like you do as an artist, I feel like you always there's always such a battle between your within yourself of like art versus business, and like balancing those two, and like because like you want to do the art, that's the fun part,
Right.
but then you have to do the business to be able to like sell the art, or like and when I say art, I mean like a stop motion video for a brand,
Right.
or a stop motion stuff for like for business, like, and that is like part of it. So like I don't know, it's kind of like a fun mix of those things that you have to kind of figure out, like and learn a bit about the business. And then like while I was working at that job editing, a couple projects came through there where they were like, so the client kind of asked for stop motion, and so I did like 2 or 3 projects there that were, I thought were pretty cool and that I could put on my reel. And then when I left that job, I was able to kind of use those projects and some of the other stop motion projects that we had done earlier, and start pitching, and start like at least even just reaching out to production companies, reaching out to different studios in Chicago, trying to like at least make some connections and meet some people and see if anybody had any kind of stop motion work. And I'll be honest, in Chicago, there's not a ton of it, which is it's such a weird, like Chicago's an interesting place because like there's the film schools here. There's like Second City is here, so there's a lot of comedy and actors here.
Sure.
But it's hard, but it's weird because most of like production is in LA and it's in New York, and there's not a ton of work here. So it's kind of a hustle always to try to find that stuff. So like I would say even today, I'm probably doing like 60% video editing and 40% stop motion. So I put everything into the stop motion when I get it, because it's like you really want that work,
Mhm.
but it doesn't always come. So you're like, it's a juggle. It's like it's a balancing act. I
Sure.
want to reverse those. I want to be doing more stop motion. It's what I
Yeah.
really love doing. But I like editing too. So it's like you got to take stuff to pay the bills, and then you got
Right.
to
Right.
do the stuff that you want to do for fun and so like you also have to make your own projects too, because like so work isn't always just going to come to you. And
Hmm.
so like the other thing is like doing shorts and doing side projects is, I think, important, and I struggle at getting those done as well. Like they always fizzle out, and you're like, oh, I don't have time for this anymore, or or I've lost so you lose the passion for that project after you work on it for too long, or you don't get far enough in it, and then you're like, I don't know if I really want to do that anymore. So I don't know. It's like it's such an interesting kind of thing to try to juggle.
Sure. I mean, what would be, and this is probably something hard to answer just as far as average, but if you were to have a project come along and it was something where you're like, wow, that came along really fast, what would that look like as far as time spent on, builds and filming and animation? What would be something that would feel like it would be like, hey, 3 months was absolutely very quick. Like, is there anything that kind of computes to putting in the
Well,
work to this?
it's interesting because so uh, the Revolution Brewing stuff that I've done, those usually come really quick. And so uh, to save that time, we have hired out to a company called Stellatus, who helps us build all the stuff, because they're fast at it, they're quick at it, and they're good. They're probably much better than what I could do. And
Mm,
so like it's nice to be able to kind of find it. Sometimes the answer is get more people on the project if the money's there, and to try to just attack it faster.
okay.
But it is, and then the other thing is like compromising a little bit on what the project is, and trying to find like if there's because a lot of times with these deadlines, for if somebody reaches out and we need it by this day, or we need it by February 1st, or we need it by and so like you have to make that or not get the project. And so you're like, okay, well, we're gonna have to figure this out. And yeah, you just have to like make some compromises or kind of rethink the project. So like for the Revolution stuff, a lot of what we do is we'll be like, okay, how can we make it so that we're in one setup, and we're not like having to build extra sets, like a ton of different sets. We'll think about the project in terms of like, with those ones, it's nice. They'll usually give us kind of carte blanche to do whatever. Like we're with those Revolution projects, we're selling their variety packs, and usually the art, and we're basing our project on the art that they already have. And so the
Oh,
art
okay.
usually is like based on a movie. And so like one of them was Indiana Jones. So we had Stellatus, which is a company in Chicago, and they're great. So shout out to them. Built they built these sets that were like, they built like 4 or 5 different walls. They built a couple different floors. And so what we did was we were able to kind of like repurpose those same walls. We'll flip one, and we'll kind of arrange the walls differently, or something, to kind of like make the most out of what little we have.
That's
Or
sick.
or also just setting it in the same spot. Or so like another one we did, we were like, okay, there's a cave entrance, and let's have so we set several of the videos around this cave, in and out of the cave. So we shot all the stuff on the cave entrance at the same time. And so that was video 1, video 3, video 4, and video 5 all had shots. So when I was storyboarding it, we planned those shots so that it was like we could shoot those. We weren't going to change the angle. We're going to just shoot those shots in succession, so that we can knock that stuff out of the way and then move on. And so it's kind of figuring out your schedule so that it's complementary, or so that it moves you faster. So you're not going to tear something down and then put it all the way back up again. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and those were so sick too. Like, watching
Yeah.
just the whole series of just different fun with those. And I mean, like I mentioned earlier, like the wrestling matches, and
Yeah.
you have moments
Yeah.
that they get right near the ring and they smash down, and they, for the effect
Yes.
of like jumping
Yeah.
up and all that. Like, what went into as far as just all of the various cans? Did Revolution have to send you just different cases to where you had to go through, just dumping out tons of beer
Yeah.
and trying to?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a couple times we would pour them out and drink a little of the, but we'd save it until like 4 o'clock or a little later
Sure.
in the day to drink the beer. But yeah, so like to prep the cans, they would send us a whole bunch. And so like they would send us, so like for each one, we're selling a certain variety pack. So they have certain art on each can that they want us, and they want us to highlight that beer specifically and that character that's on the beer. But sometimes the beer wasn't ready yet. And so they would fill these cans with a different beer. And one time we were at the end of the day and I was like, all right, I'm going to crack this open and try this one. And it was like a 12% stout. And I thought it was like a 6% IPA.
No.
I was like, this doesn't taste right. No, so yeah, we'd have to dump them out, and we'd cut holes in the bottom of the can and put a magnet up in there so that we can use a rig to make it. I would use a rig, something like this, like a rig with a magnet on the end of it, and then I put the magnet inside the can, and then I can kind of make it hop around, make it jump, and do all kinds of movement. And then I take this rig out in post-production. So I take a picture of just the set with nothing on it, and then I take that picture and I paste that over top of the rig so that you can't see the rig, and it looks like the can is moving around on its own.
Oh, dang. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
Within this project, was there anything that came about that maybe it was just like an on-the-job training where it's like, I've never done this before. I've had to like figure out what would have been something with this project that you had to really...
Every time there's something. And every project there's something like that where you're learning.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's honestly part of the joy of it, but it's also part of the stress of it.
Well,
but like with the Rev stuff, like rigging those cans honestly took it took like several projects and because they would keep coming back to us for more of them, like once every quarter for a while they were doing. And so like so it took probably like till the third one till we were like very comfortable with rigging the cans, because it's a lot. Like we were using too big of rigs that were weighing down the set. We were using and so like I don't know, and then we were doing other times where sometimes it was faster for us to just rig it by holding like instead of like using this thing to like very perfectly set it up, we were just literally taking a stick with a magnet on it and holding it and like trying to make it look right, because we were like, we don't have time, like let's just so and the other thing is, so I work on those with Potluck Creative, which is a studio or a creative agency in Chicago. And Mikey, the guy I work on it with, the two of us are very ambitious. We're like, oh, what if we add like a camera move here, or what if we're like, and honestly it's a problem because we're like we'll get like halfway through, and we usually shoot them on 3 days. We have 3 days to shoot these 5 videos.
Oh wow, okay.
It's quick. And so
5 videos?
5 30-second or less videos, and we're shooting those in 3 days. And it was 2 when we first started. It was 2, so it was a time crunch, and it was like, whoa, it was a lot. And so like we're always the other problems, we're too ambitious, and so we're like trying to like make it more complicated than it needs to be, I suppose. But a lot of times that turns out, and it's like better because of that, and it turns out good. And definitely learning all the time, learning on the job, and figuring stuff out. Stuff doesn't work out, and so you have to compromise and change plan, and you have to. It's a constant part of all filmmaking, I would say. And and honestly, I think it makes you better though, because like sometimes being under the pressure of that helps you kind of learn a little. You learn it. You really learn it. If you really learn how to, from your mistakes when you're doing it in front of like a crew, or like when you're so.
Well, so what about the kickback? You have the Fanger video. So as far as working on, was this the first, like, had you had prior, experience as far as working on like a music video or something that was like a tangible story going along with a soundtrack?
Um, no, not really. So my wife and I did that one together, and we did it. We were living at her parents' in their basement at the time, and so the whole basement was like while we were shooting it, it was like ground zero. It was like there was puppets everywhere. There was like naked Barbies that we had ripped the clothes off. There was like it was crazy, but it was so that one was the probably one of the first ones that we did actually with the soundtrack because and the thing about that one is that the cool thing is in the stop motion software that we have, you can kind of mark out like the beat of the music, or you can even put the audio into the program and you can see, okay, if I'm going to move his mouth to the lyrics, you can make a mark like I'm going to put an O sound here and an S sound here. And so I could know, and we were using paper mouths so that every time we would replace his mouth with like an S, like a smiley or you'd see his teeth or you'd see his tongue coming out or like you'd see his mouth wide open. And so we were like picking those based on the lyrics and trying to match it up with the like timing. And yeah, that was probably the first time we did that. It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot, and it was like, I think it took us because we were working other jobs and we were like, it was really just like a side project that we were working on. It probably took us like 6 months to build and shoot everything. But it was awesome. And we kind of set out to try to make it feel like, maybe not look like necessarily, but feel like those Rankin and Bass stop motion specials like the Rudolph and Year Without a Santa Claus and all those old Christmas specials. And yeah,
So
it was
sick.
a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And yeah.
I was just gonna ask, how do you pull off the spirit, like leaving the body and going into the television? That
Oh
part
yeah.
where I was just
Oh
like,
yeah.
yo, what
That was
just happened?
well, so that one we like shot it twice. And so we shot a scene with like we had the if I remember correctly, yeah, there's a puppet that was sitting, let's see. Yeah, he was like sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
And so we shot one where he's sitting on the couch and like doing nothing, I think like watching the TV, maybe like clicking the remote. And then we took everything out and put a green screen in, and then we shot just the puppet like on a rig, like being flown like towards the TV or towards where we had originally filmed where the TV was. So we overlaid the footage. The cool thing about the stop motion software is you can take the footage that you already shot, bring it in and like lower the opacity so you can see the last thing you shot, which was, I think the first shot was he's just sitting on the couch and then the camera goes over to the TV, which rattles. And that was the first shot we did. So we brought that footage into the program a second time, and we shot, so we could see where the camera move was. We could see when he's supposed to hit the TV, and we were just on a green screen. And we never even moved the puppet. He was still sitting there. And so we then were able to kind of just start moving the puppet up and then flying into the thing. So then we were able to kind of then take the green screen out, put that footage over the original footage, and then like just lower the opacity of him so he was ghost-like. So the whole thing.
Sick.
It was the whole thing. And it takes a lot of planning. So like we storyboarded that whole thing out. I mean, you have to like plan, especially for stop motion and stuff. You can't just shoot, like if you're shooting like a film, you can kind of just, there's something you can kind of wing it. You can just do coverage. You can put the camera over here. Let's try the scene from over here. Let's do a wide shot. But like with stop motion, you have to like, every shot is like, you're not wasting, you can't waste time animating something that's not going to be in the thing. And so you have to plan everything out. And so you have to like make sure that that you're using your time wisely, and that the stuff that you're shooting is the money shot.
God, that is so sick. I love that. Lastly, about this, I wanted to touch on creating the clay band. You have the instruments. You have my dudes just actually jamming out. How
I have them? My dad helped me build. Where are they? I think they're here. My dad helped me build the Dad helped us build the instruments. Oh, I have stuff in here. So Dad helped us build the instruments, which was cool because my dad is like a handy dude. I also have them right here. Here's some guitars
So
that he built.
sick.
We didn't even do these, so we built a lot of the other sets, but he helped us build these instruments. Pretty good handiwork here. And then we have
Man.
the wire. So this is this is the wire that would be plugged in, but it's animatable. It's a wire that can be moved around, which is nice, so that you can kind of incrementally move it a little bit.
Okay. Dang.
This
awesome.
is the head, actually. So the lead of the band, the lead singer of the band, Billy Yost, this is his head that we used. It's got, the top of his head is actually wet clay. This part is, we baked the clay so that it's stiff and it's not going to move. But then the hair we kept wet so that we could kind of make it move around, and like there were scenes of him underwater, so we wanted it to kind of like move around. There's like, here's some more instruments my dad builds. Yeah. So, and honestly, one of the hardest scenes that we did was that scene with all the guys, because we had to mark out like in our sheet as we're animating, we had to mark out, okay, on this frame he has to hit the snare, on this frame he has to hit the kick, on this frame he has to hit the cymbal, and that's just one guy. Like, we're animating 4 or 5 guys. And so, like, what about, he has to change chords, he has to, like, do a solo here. And so, like, it was a lot of that kind of stuff while we're trying to animate. And so that was a challenge. And it turned out good. Like, there's also another scene there at the end that is crazy, where we, every measure, I would say, of the music, the background changes. But we didn't like just have them on a green screen. We had full sets built out. And so like we do a couple beats, and then we would take all the puppets out, put in a whole new set, put those puppets back in the exact same place that they were. And so like you can see like the background is changing, but it's fully the set that they're on, which is kind of cool. And it does it like 4 times, and that was the hardest part for sure.
So was there like a tape placement on the like the base of it to where you knew where to have them?
We marked it, so like we had it on a pegboard underneath, and so we could see the holes that we were using. We marked those. We were like, that's where this foot is, that's where this foot is. So we could put them in the exact same spot. Yeah.
Dang.
So it's that kind of stuff, but it's also that kind of stuff we're I don't know. It is ambitious stuff. You're like, what if we do this? Well, how do we figure that out? What are we going to do to make that work? So yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of like problem solving.
And that's the thing, is like, I have always loved the style. I have always loved stop animation, but the parts that I have seen as far as the behind the scenes with Phil Tippett's work, or anything from Jurassic Park, you just look at just the minute movements of trying to look into something, or like you mentioned, tools, videos and kind of behind the scenes with those. It's just like, man, I understand why people are like, I'm not going to do this anymore, because it is a lot. But God, I love it. It's a lot. It's done.
It's a lot, but I think it's like, I honestly think that it's not more. I would never qualify it as more difficult or more needing more patience per se than hand drawn or CG animation. It's just a different like mindset. You just attack it in a different way. Because like the thing, I think the hardest thing about it, especially with like a character like this, is you have to like wrestle with this puppet, and you're trying to make it look smooth movements. Like, so like lately I've been doing these walk cycles. I've been trying to just make it walk clean, just walk normal. And they say that like in terms of character animation, the biggest hurdle to get over is learning how to do a walk cycle and make it look normal, because everyone knows what it looks like when a person walks. But it's such a natural thing, and it's such a normal thing that, so every single person, anybody who knows nothing about animation, they know what it looks like when someone walks normally. But it's the hardest thing when you actually are really thinking about it, because you're like, okay, this foot lifts here, this arm kind of comes forward here, the timing of it, how far does the arm go? when do they, I don't know. It's very difficult. And especially with the 3-dimensional puppet that you're moving, like if you move it a little bit this way, it's like, that's going to look wrong. If you have to kind of like keep it. So like the next move would be like, I would be coming down here, but that kind of shifted. So I want to move that this way. And I don't know. It's a whole process, but
Oh
it's like,
man.
and then of course you have to move the arms and so I've been practicing it because like I, what I had one time I talked to the stop motion people who make Robot Chicken, and they were like, "We
Oh
love
man.
your
Okay.
work, but like most of what you do is like, it's not character animation. It's like so a lot of the social videos or stuff for different brands is a lot of like top down. I would put the camera up, looking straight down. I would animate products and stuff like that. So that's
Sure.
not character animation. That wouldn't get me very far on Robot Chicken. So I've been trying, and not necessarily that I want to work at Robot Chicken specifically, but doing character animation in
Mm.
general. It's a different beast a little bit, and so like it's it's different. It's very challenging. I'm trying to wrestle it because it is like it's I'm trying to get the walk cycle down, because then once I got that and I don't have to think about it anymore. Like I'm using this book called The Animator's Survival Kit, and it kind of shows you like it shows you
Oh dang.
steps to try to like learn how to, and then of course in this book it tells you like what if you want to make them skip? What if you want to make them more of like a lazy person walking, or more of a, bouncy walk or stuff like that.
Jeez.
So once you learn, I don't know, I'm trying to learn just like straight up normal walk and get that down, and then maybe move on so that I don't have to think about this as much, and it's just more intrinsic in my brain.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot.
So okay, kind of a change from that, and almost a cartoony approach. Your work with Up Top Treats. What can you tell us about the short that you did there, and
Yeah.
the animation, and how fun that thing was? It was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It's that one was in a top down style. So I had a rig up here that I put the camera pointing straight down at the table,
Oh, okay.
and it was all bits of paper. It was bits of paper cut out, and they had already designed the main character, the Pika, and so which is like a little mouse that's like indigenous to like Colorado, I think.
Yeah.
And so my goal was just to be able to translate that to paper cutouts, and then we created a story, or had like we did storyboards and did all that kind of stuff. I kind of wanted it to feel like Looney Tunes or something a little wacky and bizarre, but I also, doing the paper cutouts, that's not the style they do Looney Tunes. That's more like what they originally did South Park with,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, paper cutouts. And so like it's a different beast a little bit. So I was trying to kind of mix those styles. But the thing about it is I wish that I had what's called a downshooter, which would be like if I had different planes, like if I had a pane of glass here, another pane of glass here, and another pane of glass here, I could put the background on one. I could put like the main
Oh.
character on one, and then I could put like foreground elements on the top one, and then the camera would be up here. So like only this guy in the middle would be in focus. This would be a little blurry. This would be a little blurry. It would add some depth, and then I could easily kind of animate one without messing up the other, because that was a problem that I had was like I'd move the little character, and if I didn't tacky everything down, then it would start moving, or I'd lose his eyeball like underneath a piece. Or like, oh no, where'd his eye go? But it was fun. I think it turned out really good, and it was a project that I was able to do just here. Like I'm in my laundry room right now. By the way, I didn't mention that. This is this is the room that we have space to do this, and so like I have my actual computer and desk in the other room, and I'm just running it I have a monitor here, so I can kind of animate in here. And it's a tiny, tiny space, but it was perfect for that thing and for practicing stuff like this.
Awesome.
And so, but when I'm doing a bigger project like Revolution that needs actual 3-dimensional sets, I was hired by a production company, we'll work there or rent a space or something like that, because
Oh, okay.
it just demands more space. But this one with Up Top was like, yeah, it was just bits of paper, so it's something that I could do in a smaller space for sure.
Man, that's
Yeah,
that's so cool. I mean, and I've seen too, as far as that you were, with the figure that you have in the background that you've been doing the kind of,
yeah.
walks with that too. Is that, just you've kind of mentioned, with working on that, has that just been something where it's kind of a focus study type thing, or was that
Yeah.
maybe like a project coming up that you were working on to solidify a little
No,
bit?
not necessarily, not specifically.
Okay.
I got this. He's called. This is a company called Sticky Bones, and they make these figures for stop motion animation and also for like an artist to use as a reference, because like it's super articulate. Like there's so many. You can move each of the fingers. It's very articulate. So
Mm.
you and and posable. And so like I'm just using it for tests and trying to just get better at character animation,
Hmm.
because most like if I like most of the time, if you're trying to show off a piece of animation, especially character animation, it doesn't the production value of what you're doing doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is the animation. And
Hmm.
so I feel like I could eventually get really good at character animation, and I'm going to knock on wood here. But and if I were to get really good at it and have like a really cool reel of even just stuff set on this table of just like the character running, the character jumping, doing karate or whatever, like it wouldn't matter that this is just a basic setup. What matters is the actual movement. And that's what, like, if I was trying to work on a feature on like uh on the next Mad God or whatever, like they would hopefully look at that kind of stuff and be like, oh yeah, we could hire this guy. So hopefully
Sick.
that's kind of a goal as well. So we'll see. But yeah, I need to get that practice in. So
Yeah. That's so rad. One other thing I was just missing as far as the up top treats
oh
I
yeah,
wanted to touch on was there anything as far as with the actual character? Did they have drawings? Did they have
yeah,
like the logo already prior to where it
yeah.
was just kind of a build around?
Yep, they had all this stuff designed. They had the character, um, and they just reached out to me and were like, they wanted to do an animation with it, and so they had all the stuff. Honestly, I didn't do a ton of the design, other than like the like cave that he lives in and like some of the flowers and stuff. Those were all stuff that I kind of designed, and my wife actually helped cut out some stuff. But then the rest of it was all stuff they had already designed, and I wanted it to fit within the world that they already created, so that it wasn't like so that they could use it and it wasn't anything new.
Mhm.
But the character, yeah, that was something that someone at the company already designed, and he looked great. I thought he to me, that's why I kind of even was thinking Looney Tunes, because I was like, he looks like he could be hanging out with Bugs Bunny or something, and so I
Yeah.
wanted to make it feel like that for sure.
Yeah, that's so awesome, man. I love it. And I have to apologize. I should have asked your wife as well with all the work and all the things that she
Oh
has
yeah,
done with you.
yeah,
So if at some point, maybe we could do something else. We
yeah,
can do somewhere it's the three
for
of us
sure,
and
for
dig into
sure.
that and do, maybe some like
Yeah.
movie stuff or something. So,
Well, and
um,
yeah. That's the other thing is like like right now the two of us are trying to build little miniature puppets of ourselves. So we're taking a online course that we bought, and so we're like trying to make like very from the course was by someone that has done a bunch of work on movies and stuff, and so we're trying to like make little characters of ourselves, and so that's like just
dang,
a little side project that we've been working on. And so and then that and like I've been trying to I have a couple little ideas for shorts that I've been wanting to do, so like we'll work on that stuff on when we have time. um
sick.
yeah, there's another project that we did years ago called Marked Territory, and it was like this thing with
Oh yeah.
it was this project that we had worked on, and then like okay, so the project was like about it's kind of like a world run by dogs, and it was kind of like a take on Planet of the Apes, but if dogs took over the world and humans were kind of like their golem like pets, that could barely speak, or were just nasty. And so we were working on that. We built a bunch of sets, and we recorded stuff too. So like we had a bunch of our friends who were comedy people do just improv. So we kind of like made up scenes, and just kind of like each scene would have a little through line, but we let our friends kind of just record improv for the scenes and kind of directed them a little bit, and we have like a whole audio track for like a full like 20-minute episode, but
Oh,
we
dang.
only animated a couple scenes because uh Isle of Dogs was announced, which was Wes Anderson's stop
Yeah.
motion thing about like sentient dogs in this like little, and so we were like, oh my gosh, is this too similar to that thing? And then there was like a Rick and Morty episode about dogs that were intelligent, and we were like, oh, I don't know if this is like a thing anymore.
What
But like part of me
timing.
wants to come back to it because we
Looks
had a
great.
whole story. Yeah, like the thank you. The we built some puppets. I think we would probably start over from scratch on some of that stuff, but like I really enjoyed doing it, and I liked the story, and um it was funny. And so I don't know, maybe we'll come back to that, but that was like 8 years ago now. And
Jeez.
so yeah, like in my in-laws like attic, we have a bunch of sets just sitting
Oh,
there
dang.
gathering dust. That's the thing too, is it takes up space. So
They're
yeah.
like, hey, if you want to come get these at some point and finish up this project,
Yeah. Yeah.
either or.
Yeah. So
No,
yeah, that's the
that's
thing is
awesome.
it's hard to kind of do those passion projects because it takes time and money and stuff that you have to kind of set aside and juggle with your regular
Yeah.
jobs, all that.
Right. Well, I honestly, man, I appreciate it and I love it. And like I, said earlier, just as far as the style, I completely understand when people, have to put things by the side for a second and, kind of take
Yeah.
on other things. But, it's so awesome that you guys, all the work that you put into and all that, the passion and love that you put into these things too. And I have to say, I appreciate the time today as well. This is
Of course.
awesome
Of
hearing
course.
hearing your story and even further at some point we'll have to have you and your wife on again
Yeah.
and get her side of the things and some
Yeah.
of the fun with that too and but yeah
Thanks, man.
I appreciate this, man. This has been absolutely awesome, David.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. And honestly, I do appreciate you doing this Midwest artists kind of showcase because I think but the Midwest is awesome. There's a lot of great art out here. There's a lot of cool stuff here. So like I am just happy that you're kind of putting a little spotlight on it. And yeah, like it's been fun talking, and I honestly I love this stuff. I hope I get to do it for the rest of my life, and and
Totally.
yeah, it's great. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'll have this if anybody doesn't have Instagram, or if anybody, popped in a little bit late, I'll have this probably within the next couple of weeks or so up on YouTube.
Cool.
Get it edited and looking a little bit better, so we're not sitting on top of each other. So
Oh,
that's
Instagram.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, thank you very much, man. This has been so sick, and we'll keep in
Thanks
touch,
for having
dude.
me on.
You take care.
Sounds great, man. See ya.
See ya.
It's so lo-fi, lo-fi, a whole guy, yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.